first round pick. Hey, throw that list away. All right.
Why are we around?
Welcome to the show. It's a Chiefs Blitz night. Breaking down the plays, keeping everything tight. From my homes to the defense, we give you the scoop. Real talk, real stats, we the ultimate troop. This ain't no game, it's our passion on display.
The baby himself.
Chiefs Blitz podcast, real fans unite. Every touchdown scored, we ignite the night. From tailgate chatter to post-game debate, we love our Chiefs, yes, never too late.
I would even bring MVS back in the middle of the season.
Are you ready for the best Kansas City Chiefs insight? Welcome to the Four Guys in a Bar, sponsored by ChiefsBlitz.com, presented by UnderdogFantasy.com. Here's your Chiefs Blitz host, Nick Athan, with Lou Montagna, Andre Tillman, and Hense Todd.
That MVS quote is never going to get.
It's never going to get old, and I love it, and I will live by that sword. He will be a Kansas City Chief again. You mark my words. It's going to happen. All right. Welcome to the Four Guys in a Bar podcast, presented by ChiefsBlitz.com, produced by BowTie Sports and Mango Entertainment. We appreciate everybody. Hope everybody had a great Father's Day on Sunday, a great weekend. I'm your host, Nick Athan, with Mr. Hense Todd, Mr. Lou Montagna, and Mr. Andre Tillman.
Hey, let's go.
What's happening?
What's up, gents? Official news. The WNBA ratings have been restored. Highest broadcast of a WNBA game this weekend, because who came back?
I called it.
Caitlin
Everybody else called
Clark.
it.
Without her, the league's nothing. With her, they are the world.
You've heard. I mean, I don't know who said it first, but I'm stealing this. But they talk about like this person moves the needle, that person moves the needle. She is the needle.
Yes.
And I don't think there's any question about it. The thing that's difficult for me is when you hear people just kind of, complain about her and just in general.
Right.
Because I think what that tells me is either they don't know basketball or they just don't watch her play. They read into a narrative, they see things on the internet, and they just want to pick a side and be against her for some reason or another. But if you watch her play and you know the game, there's no way you come away thinking that she's different from everybody else on the court.
Yeah.
Now, she may not be the biggest, she may not be the strongest, she may not be the fastest, but she's going to have a bigger impact on her team than anyone else playing right now. And this is not hyperbole. This isn't prisoner of the moment. She was like 32, 9, and 8 in that game. She had 9. She hit 3 3-pointers in the span of 38 seconds, and they weren't like walk-up threes. She was just like between the logo and the line.
It's just crazy.
So, and the way she gets every single person involved, her passing
You've seen that
skills
before, not from a woman sharpshooter like that.
Level.
Hey, all I got is four. Hey, all I got 4 letters, 1 word. Yeet.
Yeah, she is the new Pistol Pete Maravich, that's for sure.
I watch. I was watching. Big 12, and I think it's somebody up and coming that's going to take that throne. From. I'm just saying.
Yeah, what is this? Some sort of West Virginia prospect or something?
West Virginia.
Yeah,
she's 23 years. She's 23 years old. Up and coming. She's like
that's
Jordan.
She's a rookie.
Hey, let's face it. She is the Larry Bird of the WNBA, man.
I don't know. I would like to. I'd like to see.
Far.
I'd like to see, Juju Watkins, what she does next year at USC and kind of come into the league. Paige Beckers is a damn good player. She had a couple of knee injuries while she was at UConn or whatever. And I think she has a 35-point game to her credit, but it's just different. You watch Caitlin play and it just – if you watch the Pacers play and how quickly – Tyrese, gets the ball up court. She is so precise. It's almost like Patrick throwing passes out there. She's really, I haven't seen anybody like her. I really haven't.
All right. Of course, we're going to talk Kansas City Chiefs as well, but we love the WNBA around here. We love Caitlin Clark. Love talking about her. She's a remarkable athlete, and Chiefs will be starting their official mandatory minicamp Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, which means the veterans have to show up. The rookies have to show up. Everybody has to show up. Who doesn't show up will probably be the talk of the town on Wednesday. But for now, everybody is going to be there, including Mr. Travis Kelce, who reportedly has slimmed down between 20 and 25 pounds.
Now, what if he don't come in and slam down? What if he come in overweight?
Well, he's not overweight now. He's underweight.
What if he do? What if he do? What if he do come in overweight?
Well, the pictures don't lie. If you've seen all the cutie pictures with him and Taylor recently,
that would be a lot of weight to really put on in a short time. I have a hard time believing that he lost 25 pounds, but unless he was like severely,
that's the rumor.
Yeah, I mean, unless he was severely overweight at the end of last season, but that's neither here nor there. He and Jason are in Cannes right now with Amazon, promoting and what all things, New Heights podcast for,
I think that was yesterday.
Amazon.
Yeah.
So hopefully he'll be on the flight back from France soon.
Yeah.
So with that said, let's get into our sponsor.
All right, let's do it.
Baseball is back.
That's right. Baseball is back on Underdog Fantasy. Make sure you cash in today. You can play the pick'em game, very similar to what you did with the NFL. We're doing the Chiefs stuff. Now it's all about baseball, and especially the Royals. You can go higher or lower. It's really simple to use. Their app is amazing. You just choose your entry fee. You decide what you want to play, and you just see the winnings coming if you know what you're doing. So take a swing today and make sure that you sign up for Underdog Fantasy, and they're going to give you a meatball right off the gamut, Bobby Wood Jr. special. So start with a W for your first entry and new customers. Make sure you use the code Chiefs Blitz.
You gotta unmute yourself, sir.
Hold on. Here we go. All right, and we're going to talk about our sponsor, Underdog. As you all know, they've been with us now since the beginning of the year. We appreciate all their efforts, but listen, this is a really simple. It's a great game. We make it easy here. Just hit the QR code, goes right to the Underdog link, put in the code Chiefs Blitz, deposit $5, play the $5, you get 50 in bonus credits, and you can go to town and you can play this game, whether it's the NBA, the NHL, the WNBA. They had a great WNBA special. If you got the Caitlin Clark one on Saturday, you guaranteed to make a profit in this game. So here's what you do again. It's really simple. QR code, Chiefs Blitz promo code, deposit 5, play 5, get 50 extra bonus dollars, and have.
Boy, hey.
I don't know if we lost Nick.
Nah, Nick muted himself again. Nick be so passionate about what he's saying. He be so passionate. He's so passionate.
He's not. Oh, here we go.
Hold on. I have promised people if they sign up that I'm going to start giving out some of my collectible signed cards. This isn't one I'm giving out, but I got a Derek Thomas one right here. I don't know if you can see it. There you go.
Yeah, way to lure him in, Nick.
I'm luring you in. This is the switcheroo. But nonetheless, I've got a lot of cards like this. This is Derek Thomas in the, I think it's called the Boom card or the BAM card. But I got a whole bunch of cards that I'm giving away. So all you got to do is register. Once you've registered, you deposit your $5. Shoot me an instant message, and I will make sure.
So you're a winner no matter what. If your play doesn't work out, you're going to get that card, and that's going to be worth its weight in gold.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Yeah. All right, gentlemen. Hense, guide us.
What I was about to say, I already registered. So do I get a card, sir?
No. You get other things.
New customers, Hense.
You guys get Chiefs memorabilia for Christmas. I think that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought I can get in there, and get some memorabilia in there. You got what, Trent McDuffie there?
Absolutely.
Teacups.
But this is going to be worth a lot more money because he's wearing number 21.
There you go.
On this card.
That was the rookie card.
Hey, Kareem said, "Where is Hense Todd at?" I knew it was something fishy about that person. I knew it was something very fishy about that. Hense Todd. I know it was something fishy, Kareem. Very fishy, sir.
So with that said, let's get right into today's show. go ahead and read this for us, Mr. Lou.
Okay, so it looks like we're going to be talking about Chiefs coaching legends. You see the all-star lineup there. I don't know if any of you all follow us on social media, and if you're not, please go ahead and subscribe there as well. On X, we had Hense Todd's home commemorating these four gentlemen and what they've done with the Chiefs. So you've got the coaching legends here, from mad geniuses to the modern mastermind. I'm assuming the quotes mean that you want me to say that is from Hense Todd. So I will do that.
I didn't put the quote down. I made the quote, but I forgot. I was going to squeeze, I just made the quote, put it out.
I got you, man. I'm a team player. Team
player indeed. All right, question 1, Lou, hit it.
How did Hank Stram's early innovation shape the Chiefs' identity? Nick, you were there.
That's a really good question. As you all know, he was my neighbor growing up, so spent a lot of time with Hank in my youth, my early days. And I think if you look at what he did on the football field, I think his offense, he was an offensive genius. He innovated the West Coast offense, the mobile, the moving pocket, the reverses, a lot of things you hadn't seen in the NFL to date. And the NFL before the merger was pretty one-dimensional kind of football, and then you add what the AFL started to do, and Hank Stram was at the forefront. Walsh worked under him, and became a legend, in San Francisco, winning Super Bowls. The family tree of the Hank Stram legacy has been pretty incredible to watch. And if you watch those early games, especially if you watch those highlights, some of the plays that they ran were so creative. Defenses didn't know what to do. And the Chiefs were really in an offensive system that used the abilities of their offensive line, a mobile quarterback in Lenny Dawson, the Otis Taylors and the Mike Garretts, and the Fred Urbanises, and they just built a superior offense. They had Bohemia at the time, offensive linemen. Now we talk 310, 320, 315 for an offensive lineman. They had 260, 270, 275. And that was a big offensive line back in the AFL days. So I think he really changed the way the West Coast offense was born, how he developed it, and then you see all the iterations of the ones that have followed since, with a lot of great coaches in both leagues. So I think the league owes Hank Stram, especially the offensive coaches, quite a bit, because I think he really was the guy who built the new style offenses that we see today.
Go ahead, Luke. This is your era.
Yeah, well, for me, just looking back, I really caught him at the tail end, but in terms of what they were doing, the AFL, as Nick said, and in the question, innovator, right? Calling himself the mentor, all these different things, the choir huddle, that was something that you didn't see, in football at the time. The shifts and motions that you see that are so commonplace, especially with Andy Reid's offense, that was what he was doing. They'd line up, in an I formation with 3 guys behind Len Dawson, and then they would shift out to take their normal positions. And it was just a lot of, again, motions and shift that you didn't see a lot in the NFL. But the AFL, that kind of opened things up. The passing game was kind of the thing. And this is back in the early 60s. So, absolutely innovation. And just the fact that he took different shapes and sizes of players, where, he had tight ends that were over 6'8". You didn't see that in the league. You had running backs that were, as small, like a Warren McVay was 5'6" or something like that. And Abner Haynes wasn't a big guy either, but he played to these guys' strengths and really made them into weapons, even though they weren't, as big as the classic running backs and fullbacks were. So if you watch old Chiefs films, it will look different than the teams they're playing against. No doubt.
Definitely. I want to piggyback off that real quick. He kind of implemented the tight end formations. Like I said, shifting the tight ends, Lou, as you stated, putting tight ends behind the quarterback, confusing the defense. And also, he emphasized ball control also. He the one to emphasize ball control. You know what I'm saying? That's something that the NFL really hasn't seen yet until Hank Stram did. You know, but looking at him and how innovative he was, it was new. He was like the new era he won. Like I believe he came out the new era of football. You know what I'm saying? Because he's a guy, he's gonna take who he has and build from within. Also, just create so many dynamic mismatches against the defense. It made him special. It made him one of the best head coaches in the NFL.
I'd say he emulates. He is still winning into our culture, man. It started from there. You know, Super Bowl got the Chiefs first Super Bowl here. You know, one of the biggest parades here in Kansas City. You know, going downtown. You know, when they first won. So hey, you know, that culture of winning is still to help build the dynasty, not the dynasty, but the empire here within the kingdom. So hey, I say he had instilled that, and also, you know, one of the greatest, probably, you know, some argue, you know, some generations probably argue, probably the best head coach besides Andy Reid. You know,
no question.
You know, when it's all said and done. And do we have any questions on this topic before I go into the next question?
You know, no, I think you know, Kareem, you know, nobody looked as good in a suit as Mr. Stram. Let's see. Let's see. Kareem also says I liked him. He was sharp, witty, unapologetic. You know, I think when you look at him again, you just have to look at the overall package. I mean, this is a guy who was one thing that I think people have to understand about Hank. He was completely in control. Every single aspect of the organization, from the way they practiced, the way they dressed on and off the field, the fact that they used to take him to the old Glenwood Hotel. For those that remember that in Kansas City, over there on Metcalf on Saturday nights before the game, and they all had a curfew of 7:00, and he made sure they got their rest. I mean, he was as detailed and he was neat looking, and he was just a gentleman every step of the way. But man, he was a fierce competitor out there.
Yeah. So let's get into the next question. Go ahead, Lou.
All right. Which coach faced the toughest challenges during their time with the Chiefs?
Boy, that's a really good question. That's a really good question. I would think, Stram to some degree, because the AFL was still new and he had to go up against the establishment of the NFL. And, you know, I think that he had to also introduce a whole new brand of style of football, as we talked about. But there was so much scrutiny and so much hate on the AFL in the way that Lamar Hunt and the other owners forced the merger with Pete Rozelle, because this was a legit league. I mean, these guys generally didn't like each other. You know, the NFL versus the AFL back then. You know, Vince Lombardi in Super Bowl I, you know, said it was an inferior league. And the Chiefs, you know, left at halftime. They were tied 10-10, and everybody thought an upset was possible. And then Max McGee did crazy stuff with his hangover and was just a monster in the second half. But if you take a look at everything there, you know, I think that was the biggest obstacle. I think the other one would be from Marty, because Marty had to come in and change the culture of the Chiefs that was just abysmal. They hadn't been in the postseason. They hadn't had a really good head coach since Hank left. Marty comes in and changes the whole culture along with Carl Peterson. But he had more of a problem with convincing the players that this is the right place to play, this is the right organization, and he had to change everything. They rebuilt the entire roster. They got rid of virtually everybody and started over. And I think that was pretty tough on Marty as well.
I have to go with Dick Vermeil coming in after the, trying to take over, and also going with had to go up against the, a strong AFC, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning in his prime, going up against all that. That had to be the toughest challenge, and plus playing with no defense. You had a good offense out there that was scoring points that can get you over the hump, but you just missing that key piece on defense or key weapons on defense to get them over the hump. So and still trying to rebuild the fan base as well. Trying to bring that, give more people to come at the games and stuff like that. I'd say Dick Vermeil had to be the toughest challenge for him during the time.
I think honestly, both Dick Vermeil and Marty probably to me has like the toughest challenge because Dick Vermeil, to me, as y'all know, it's my favorite head coach. He's a player's coach. I love Dick Vermeil, man. He also emphasizes building what you have within. But by that being said, like hence I pick my piggyback off what you just said. In our era watching him, man, offense was phenomenal. One of the greatest offenses in the NFL. One of the greatest. But defense side of the ball, we just can never get it done. We wasn't complete. We was not complete. So that was like our biggest hiccup. And then going against Peyton Manning and going against New England, the powerhouse of New England, Belichick and Brady, and what they had over there. So it was I would say different Vermeil. Then on the other side of things with Marty dealing with Montana, you know what I'm saying, dealing with the Buffalo Bills, you know, dealing with Elway, you know what I'm saying, those juggernauts right there. So it was tough dealing with it was tough for Marty in that tenure because the competition was so stout. It was so stout. And remember, Marty's philosophy was run the ball, run. You know what I'm saying? So he wasn't really a complete offense for real. So defense was great, but offense side thing, I think the offensive side of things with Marty was unpredictable in a sense of, you know, but for me, I would definitely say Marty though.
Yeah, I mean, every coach faces their challenges, and they came in at different times. So it's hard to judge, you know, who had to face the toughest ones. To me, I would look at it a different way. Is I think when Dorsey and Coach Reid came in, I mean, coming off of that tire fire that, you know, Scott Pioli, and Scott Pioli seems like a great dude. You see him on TV now. He just stands for the right things, everything else. But I think when he came in and took that job, I mean, it was just, there was a lot of arrogance. There was a lot of that Patriot arrogance and just kind of, we're going to do it this particular way and whatever. And it was just weak draft after weak draft and bad coach after bad coach and just bad decisions. So those guys coming in, not only they rebuild the roster, rebuild the front office, and just kind of take it to a whole new level. So it's really hard. Again, I mean, you're splitting hairs here because everybody kind of came in with some adversity, except for Stram. I think Stram was their first coach when they initiated the AFL. So he wasn't like repairing anything. But I would say between Marty and Coach Reid, but I'll say Coach Reid just because of just how bad that whole era with Pioli and the litany of coaches that just couldn't get it done.
Terrible coaching decisions.
What they said in the chat, Nick?
Demetia says Marty turned the franchise around. I heard it was rough in the 80s. Yeah, God, we were definitely putting the bags on our heads. You know, King Mo mentioned Herm Edwards again, another guy that I think had, you know, pretty good impact on this football team.
He did.
Makovic was disliked, according to Kenny. You're right, but he got a little credit. He did break the playoff cycle. He did get them in the. I think they lost 5 of the last 6, but they still qualified to get into the playoffs, where they went to the Jets and got.
We played to win the game. I hate that quote.
Yeah, but definitely.
Well,
so you know, I think again
in context, I think.
Yeah. Okay. First of all,
they asked him a question.
Herm was a really good guy. All right, I'm going to defend Herm because
I love Herm.
Herm is my friend still to this day.
4th and 1, he punts the damn ball. Yeah. We all the momentum. He want to punt the shit.
That's
right. I hate that shit.
Jamal Charles, he drafted him. So yeah, no, definitely. Listen, we all have our opinions about these coaches, and you know, we've had a long history, and now we're kind of in that you know, gravy stage right now. We got the best player in the NFL on our team. We got the best head coach in the league. We got the best tight end. You got the best defensive tackle. You got all these great things, young receivers. But you know what? Lou's right. They all had the challenges that were very difficult, each in unique, different eras of Chiefs football.
So with that said, I would ask this because you know you give, I mean, obviously, you know, the founder, the owner, you know, Lamar Hunt did amazing things. Obviously, you know, just revolutionizing the sport and just starting his own league and then merging it into the NFL. But it seemed like, and I don't know if it was the front office or maybe he was loyal to the wrong people, but things just spun out of control once they moved into Arrowhead. I mean, it seemed like Lenny played maybe another year or two after that.
I think he played till 74.
Stram was gone, then left at some point, and it seemed like draft after draft after draft. It was just barren, just awful. And so again, I was really young at the round. I was probably like 9 years old. You were about the same age, Nick. So you really don't know, I guess, like the inner workings of the front office. But that just seems to be the most fascinating thing about Chiefs history is that period from when they moved into Arrowhead to pretty much hiring Coach Andy Reid.
Yeah,
it's just now Marty had his day, and they had some good drafts while he was there. But wow. Just amazing.
Let's get into the next question, Luke.
All right. Marty's teams were known for their toughness. Was that more important than Vermeil's offensive focus?
Another good question. And she spent some time on these today. Appreciate that. Marty was tough. Marty was a no excuse head coach. He had the responsibility to arguably build up one of the, if not next to Pat Mahomes, the greatest draft pick in Chiefs history in Derek Thomas. And, Marty was very famous for how much he loved his players, but it was tough love too. That was something he shared a lot with Hank Stram. Marty was a fighter. He was a speaking motivational expert, and God rest his soul. He could have been on that speak platform and just made a ton of money motivating people. And I think what Marty was the best at was the fact that he understood his players, and he made sure that they were ready to play. They were the best regular season team next to the current Chiefs in franchise history. It was the postseason where he failed, where he just didn't do the same things he did in the regular season. But his toughness, amen corner at Arrowhead, the things he had to do to keep Derek in line, the rotation at quarterback, the rotation, decisions that Carl made that maybe Marty didn't like. And so I think when you look at Marty overall, you have to say he was probably, of all these coaches, the hardest on the players, the toughest on the players. But for Dick Vermeil, he was all offense. That's all that mattered to him. He trusted Greg Robinson, and that ended up biting him in the ass in that terrible game against the Indianapolis Colts, where he changed the game plan on the Friday before the Sunday game after a 2-week gap. But Vermeil believed in Trent Green. Trent Green was terrific in a Chiefs uniform. He got the best out of Tony Gonzalez. He brought in, he resurrected Eddie Kennison's career. Built a just arguably to this day, the best offensive line in Chiefs history was during the Dick Vermeil era. There's no question about it. Not even close, in my opinion. And, I think when you look at these two guys and you try to compare them, I think Marty was in your face, let's go, gentlemen, rah, 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 X's and O's. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And he just refused to accept defeat and excuses. And Vermeil came in and said, I'm going to build the greatest offensive show in the NFL. And he did that with Priest Holmes. He resurrected his career. I mean, so many things had to fall in place, but Marty was, I think, the toughest coach. And Dick Vermeil, next to obviously Andy Reid, his offensive focus was second to none.
Yeah, I had to go with the toughness of Marty, man. Because as I was editing the video yesterday that I put it out yesterday for Father's Day, I was watching all his quotes and speeches. I was like,
pretty good.
They pretty good. I was like, man. I was like, this like, and also he didn't stand for much, man. He get in his players and tell them when they doing wrong. You get in their butt, and tell them when they doing wrong. He also, like you said, he was the tougher guy, the toughest one on the players, and so, and he had some great defenses as well, man. Like you can put that up there with the steel curtains and everything else. Marty, we also we went on with the Chargers and played with the coach with the Redskins as well. His defense was always up there. So I would say I had to go with Marty Schottenheimer.
I go with Dick Vermeil all day. The reason why, ladies and gentlemen,
said he was your favorite coach.
The reason why. Hold on. Now the reason why I say this because he was a people's coach. Dick Vermeil was a player's head coach. Man, he took Dante Hall. He took that munchkin, made one of the best special teamers in the game. Nobody knew about Dante Hall or Dick Vermeil. Priest Holmes he took him from the Baltimore Ravens. Willie Rowe came from the Saints. Like he believed in Trent Green, even with the injury of Trent Green, he believed in Trent Green, and he put that team, that offensive package together. And I believe in his philosophy. You build within. We didn't worry about going get this and get that. He built his team from within. He believed in them guys. He put love into his players.
You mentioned 4 guys that he had to go get.
Right.
That's what I'm saying though. But Johnny Morton. Yeah, all these guys, right? They came from
a trade with Detroit.
Right.
I mean,
right. But
I think that I don't want to cut you off, but that was, I think, his genius was that he did put all these guys together, and it turned into a well-oiled machine on offense. But every single one of those guys you talked about came from a different place. Eddie Kennison, Johnny Morton,
it came from a different place.
I mean, I don't know that hardly any of those guys were homegrown. Really?
Right, but,
I mean, most of them came through trades.
No, they weren't.
No, exactly. But what I'm saying is this: he didn't have superstars. He got guys that fit his pedigree, that fit what he wanted to do. But he always believed in his guys. He always believed in his guy. That's why I like Dick Vermeil, because he came to him like he believed in him, man. He coached him up very well. That's why I would take him over Marty. I know Marty was hard no, but Dick Vermeil, if they would have had a decent defense, it would have been a whole different ball game. I believe them guys would have went to the Super Bowl and won it.
Right. Well, each guy is, one of the best coaches that we've seen. I mean, in the NFL. I mean, Dick Vermeil's career had like 3 acts. He burns out in Philadelphia. He got to a Super Bowl and lost. Goes to St. Louis, wins a Super Bowl with just this high-flying passing offense and so forth. Then comes to Kansas City, builds this powerful running team. Again, both guys really taking advantage of the players that you have and putting them in the best position, which actually is the definition of what a coach should be, right? And then it also depends. I mean, if you're looking specifically at this question, which do you prefer? It's really what style of play do you prefer?
There you go.
There because Marty comes from, I mean, he played in the AFL. He was a linebacker for the Buffalo Bills for years. He's just a tough, hard-nosed guy. Bill Cowher's the defensive coordinator. Same thing. I mean, you look at that initial coaching staff, and there's a bunch of all-stars. Tony Dungy. I mean, you can go through the entire list. Hell, Herm Edwards was there at a certain point. But
maybe the modern day Marty Schottenheimer.
But I would say just because I would say Marty's, just because that defense is going to travel, you're going to be in every game and so forth. Where he was really missing is he didn't have always a consistent trigger man until he gets Montana late into his 30s, and he was kind of way past his prime. But they got to the championship game once they got the guy that at least can make some plays when they needed. So it's hard to balance because neither guy really got very far in the play. And he got to the championship game, they lost. Vermeil got to the playoffs a couple times, whatever. It didn't work out so well. So both guys did the best that they could with the players they have, but in terms of just
pick your sauce.
When you felt more confident, or at least me, I felt more confident during Marty's tenure than I did with Dick Vermeil's. Now I love Coach Vermeil, but just the defensive side of the ball was just not good at all.
So basically, real quick, so you'll pick defense over offense. Is that what I'm hearing from you, Lou?
I would say the difference between the Chiefs' defense and offense was much narrower when Schottenheimer had the team, where Now, Vermeil, that offense was much better, but the defense was so bad, the gap was way too far for them to win. You argue, I mean, they way overachieved. I mean, to have Peyton Manning on the ropes was just, now in the moment, you're like, yeah, we should have done this, they could have won the game. But then, you step back a number of years and say, well, they really were lucky to be in that position.
No, they were very lucky.
Not only did they have home field advantage, but you're playing against one of the all-time great quarterbacks. So it's you don't go wrong either way. But just for me, I was more confident in Marty's teams than I would have been Coach Vermeil's teams.
Yeah. So do we have some questions in the chat about this one before we move on?
Let's see. Kenny Sinclair in 2003, all they needed was an average defense, and they would have won the Super Bowl. Yeah, I don't think there's any question. Demisio, Vermeil was my guy, but man, the defenses were terrible when he was around.
Yeah, man.
Kareem has Trent Green as his second favorite quarterback. Ikoe's in. This is big history. You guys are talking about excellent content that not many know of. We love it. Let's see.
Tell your friends, Ikoe. We want more people from
let it go. Fly out. Let it linger.
I want to piggyback on what Lou said. I think you're right. I mean, I think that with Marty, you knew what they had. And I think that looking at the spectrum of these coaches, there were so many incomplete teams in the history of this organization. Hank had offense and defensive guys.
Yeah.
Once Steve Spagnuolo arrived in Kansas City, then Kansas City had offense and defensive guys. So they were more team-oriented. Everything in between was a crapshoot. Can they either hold their opponents to 10 or 13 points, or would they have to score 25 to 35, 40 points a game to win? There was nothing in between. The first coach and the current coach, everything in between was just a mess.
Hey, you just said it, man. You just said it. The first coach and the coach we got now, both are champions, man. The one in between is kind of sour, man. Like, it was unbalanced. You know what I'm saying? That's
you
crazy.
Go the entire history of the organization.
Both innovators, too.
And you have one quarterback that you drafted and developed.
Yep.
That you're going to have that. I mean, there's no two ways about it. It's just to go that far without having the guy. It's hard to win. I mean, just plain and simple.
And they picked up a 30-year-old quarterback in Lenny Dawson when he went to the Dallas Texans to start.
Right. So until Patrick, that was it. Right. It was a bunch of retreads.
So with that said, let's get into the next question, Luke.
Let's go. Who had the biggest impact on the Chiefs' offensive strategy, Vermeil or Reid?
Ooh. Well, it's kind of an unfair question. I think Patrick Mahomes, obviously, when you've got a unicorn quarterback, once in a generational player, a guy with a football IQ that's as high as it could possibly be at the quarterback position, and a Hall of Fame coach. I think you have to obviously give the edge, to Andy Reid. And Andy Reid, has been dogged in years, can't win in the postseason. He's bad at managing the clock. And even with all the issues that he had prior to the arrival of Patrick Mahomes, he still had some tough times, as we saw in the witness of the Super Bowl a year ago, where things just don't work out. But I think from a strategic standpoint, I think Reid relies more on the play itself and the plays called themselves and trusting his quarterback. Dick Vermeil ran his offense and he executed it to the point of the player's ability to make it good. And so I think the complexity in which Andy has approached his offense is greater than Dick's. And I love Dick Vermeil. He's a great guy. He was the first coach I covered when I was doing War Paint Illustrated, and he was always good to me. And I think that his shortcomings were he trusted some of his players too much, I think, especially on defense. He didn't spend hardly any time on defense. But I think the strategy for the impact overall of the organization and its history, Andy Reid's definitely above Dick Vermeil.
Yeah. Yeah, I had to say Andy Reid as well. But that offensive line of Dick Vermeil, man, shoot,
Put that offensive line in today's group.
You put that. I think you had to argue or something like that. And him, Dick Vermeil, and was it Al
Saunders?
Al
Saunders, yeah.
That connection there was deadly.
Yeah,
it was deadly. No, nobody the plays that was coming up with, the screen game was shoot.
Shout out to the offensive line, man.
Hey, every running back they had cooked. Larry Johnson,
Blaylock.
and also Priest Holmes. Them guys is cooking. So if I take away the rings from Andy Reid, if I just move those out of the equation, I know you can't because he won them, and he got Patrick Mahomes. I had to say Dick Vermeil, man.
Woo, I ain't see that coming.
I had to say if you take that away, Dick Vermeil was that offense was cooking.
I don't care about results.
You don't care about the rings.
You don't care about the rings. I got you.
If you put these two
with the rings,
if you put these two in the arena together, you get them the same team, the same quarterback, and the same results, and see who can come up with the best schemes, the best plays.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll be. I think Dick Vermeil would get Andy Reid. I think he will.
I
really do. I think Dick Vermeil would take. I think he will. I think Vermeil will.
Hell yeah! I'm picking back off that Dick Vermeil, guys. His philosophy was first
you
and second down.
He was your favorite coach.
First, I'm defending my guy right now.
Go
I'm
ahead.
gonna say this: his philosophy was first and second down. It was the first down. He believes 60% of the time, throw the goddamn ball. We're going to keep this the engine rolling. We're going to keep it moving, man. And that was his philosophy, man. And he was a mastermind on breaking down defenses and creating mismatches. On the other side of things with Andy Reid was West Coast offense, hyper West Coast offense situation, belief in the short immediate passing games, you know what I'm saying? Kind of like that, try to kill Rashid Rice, you know what I'm saying? Slant to the house. Create opportunities for his guys, but also just for Andy Reid's thing was adapting to what he had, adapting to Kelsey, adapting to the who Patrick Mahomes is, just having guys that he bring in, even though it was the West Coast offense, but he also created a situation for these guys to flourish in, and that was the power of Andy Reid, just adaptability. But Dick Vermeil was all gas, no brakes. He was like, go, we throwing the ball, rear screen this damn thing, first and second down. We're getting this first down. And that's why their offense was so deadly. I got to go Dick Vermeil, man.
Also with Dick Vermeil, man, I know Andy Reid. No, I know he got the rings and everything. But he's an offensive line coach. And Dick Vermeil wasn't an offensive line coach. And he took Brian Waters, Casey Whitman. He turned all those guys into Pro Bowlers and Hall of Famers. If we could take the rings and you got the rings, but Dick Vermeil put in more Hall of Famers, I would say yes. I have to go. That's why I would go with Dick Vermeil.
So basically, what you saying, Bo? You like offensive line. You like that foundation. You know what I'm saying? You want that cake. You know what I'm saying? That strong cake, man. Hell yeah. Him and
Al Saunders was unstoppable.
I mean, I loved it, man.
That was if they had a defense, I think he probably had more rings than Andy Reid. If you look at it, he probably had more rings than Andy Reid.
We would have beat New England. We would have beat New England, man.
Go ahead, Lou.
And if my aunt had balls, so yeah, I guess going back to what I had said earlier about Coach Vermeil. I mean, he obviously, you saw what they did in St. Louis. Now that was more, Saunders was there with him, but Mike Martz was kind of like the mad genius behind the entire greatest show on turf. But it was primarily, through the pass. Even though they had Marshall Faulk, they would run the ball some, but that offense was going through Torrey Holt. It was going through Oz Hakeem. It was going through, basically any wide receiver that they lined up. So he comes to Kansas City, and it's more, he recognizes this is more, we got to play to this offensive line. We've got these great backs. Larry Johnson was there. They bring Priest Holmes in, and now all of a sudden you got this two-headed monster. So both guys have done a great job adapting their offenses. I mean, those guys come from kind of, and I think I talked about it last time, comes from the Sid Gilman tree, and it was more of a passing offense. Where Coach Reid, Mike Holmgren, they come from Bill Walsh, who came from Paul Brown, the whole West Coast type offense. So, it's hard to say. You can't argue with the success and the wins. I mean, that's just, it's just that simple. They've won a lot of games, and they've won some Super Bowls, and they've been pretty dominant for a number of years. So, I mean, it's a flip of the coin. I will just give it to Vermeil just because he adapted his offense a hell of a lot more than Coach Reid did. But by the same token, he also had that, one of the greatest offensive lines I've ever seen. So I'll go Vermeil, kind of in a photo finish.
Appreciate it, guys. Appreciate it. Best offensive coach. Vermeil Reid. Everybody said Vermeil. We got Dick Vermeil.
So what they said in the chat before I go get to the last question.
Ken talked about Haley. He never played football. He was just a great golf coach. Let's see. Demetrio Reid, maybe the greatest offensive mind ever. I can't disagree. Kenny with the Schottenheimer polka. I love it. Yeah, that was back in the day. Man, you're as old as I am, buddy. If you remember that. Vermeil was my guy, but the defenses were terrible. Again, it
sounds German to me.
The Schottenheimer polka. Yeah,
polka is, I think, Polish, but okay, something like that.
Let's get to the next.
I guess they made it work.
They made it work. It was good soundbite.
Yeah, man.
Let's get to the next question, Luke.
All right, if you could bring back one of these coaches in their prime, who would it be and why?
Oof. Boy, that's a good question. You know what? I'd have to say Dick Vermeil, because I loved, I'm sentimental because, again, he's the first coach I covered in the press. But I loved his emotional demeanor. He wore his emotions on the sleeve. I'm the same way. I'm an emotional person. Dick was very nostalgic, very appreciative of the history of the game, very appreciative of the opportunities and the success he had, but he just wore it all out there. You knew exactly who Dick Vermeil was. You knew exactly what it was. And I believe if we had him in a different era, not only would he have built a good offense, but I think he would have paid a lot more attention to the defense. Mm-hmm. And I think he would have really put the same mental fire into the defense. And again, he didn't quite have the talent. He had some really good players. They had a lot of draft picks that just didn't work. He brought on all these guys from different rosters, as Lou mentioned. But I think for me, I like to see Dick Vermeil in 2025 with what he had learned in his experiences now. I think that would be fun to watch.
Yeah, if he'd have come in when he was younger, right, because they had to drag him out of retirement.
They dragged him, literally.
Carl Peterson. I mean, they worked together at UCLA all those years ago. They had a relationship I think Carl was with the GM or president with the Philadelphia Stars and USFL, and Vermeil was coaching the Eagles. So they've been tight for a long time, and that was just something that I think it was more of a favor.
Yeah, so, it turned out to be that.
That would have been interesting to see if he'd have got here as a much younger man.
But if I had to bring one back, it had to be Marty. I know I gave Dick Vermeil all that. I'll bring Marty back.
Man, you're the most wishy-washy person.
He is. He did on purpose.
Wow. This would also be pretty boring if we kept saying Vermeil for everything.
I will bring back Marty.
I think Dick's on my cell phone right now, just trying to.
He's on my cell phone.
There you go.
Right.
I hear that.
I'll bring back FaceTime. I'm gonna put him with Spags, man. Put him and Spags together. Put both of those minds together. and make one defensive coach, it will be unstoppable.
That's two different. That's two defensive-minded coaches, though. You got two defensive-minded coaches on the staff.
I think
Vermeil was offense.
You know, I think
I'm talking about Marty. I'm talking about Marty. He said Marty, and who else you said, Bo? He said Marty and who? Marty and Spags. Marty and Spags. I'm like, bro, what the hell?
I put Marty and Spags together and make one ultimate defense. One ultimate defense.
Offense ain't gonna score not one damn point.
Never throw a forward pass.
They ain't gonna score not one damn point
every play.
You ain't scoring nothing on Marty or Spags. So I would say yes.
I'm gonna say Vermeil. I feel you. I'm gonna say Vermeil, man. Vermeil with Spags. Now we talking about balance, ladies and gentlemen. Now we're talking about balance, ladies and gentlemen. My man said he want too much sugar on the cake. Damn it. Okay, but the foundation is kind of iffy. Now you'll be right in between of what Dick was talking about. If you want something that's balanced, you bring Dick Vermeil. Spags, you got that combination right there. We're talking about multiple Super Bowls right now because remember, they couldn't touch Dick Vermeil because nobody stopped Dick Vermeil's offense. They couldn't do it. They couldn't touch it. That offensive line with that defensive mind from Spags, not bringing Dick Vermeil back all day, baby.
I don't know, man. The Patriots did a good job in the Super Bowl. It wasn't like they ran the Titans out of the Super Bowl either. So, I hear you.
Shoestring tackle that stopped.
I would say, for me, I think it would just be such great theater in this era of social media, of, so many, the coaches getting opportunities to speak, to put Hank Stram in charge of these players, these athletes of this era, and him putting together a different type of schemes and so forth. It to me would just be complete theater. He would be a media darling.
Drake.
I just think it would be great. So I'm going with Coach Stram.
All right, fair enough.
Coach Stram.
After I watched Marty, like I said, I was putting that video together. After I watched Marty, man, I was like, geez,
PG-rated show, Kareem. Watch yourself.
I said, Marty, he gave those, you want. I got off the out of this chair about to run through the wall myself after hearing some of his speeches. Yeah. I said, Marty Schottenheimer and Spags together. They ain't
scoring that point. They scoring under 10 points a game.
Dangerous. It will be a dangerous.
It will be all ball control and defense. All ball control. They ain't scoring. They ain't throwing the ball over 50 yards, man.
All right, chat. If you had to bring back one coach out of these three, I know Andy Reid is already here. Andy Reid is already standing right now. He's present. But if you had to bring out the other three, Dick Vermeil, Marty Schottenheimer, or Hank Stram, which one are you guys bringing back and why? Put it in the chat. Because I know everybody know Dre is going to say Dick Vermeil. That's his favorite coach. And we already knew after that. We already knew where he was going from there on out.
He's the people's coach, man. He coach up players that don't believe in themselves. He coach them up, man. I love that. I love that, man.
Yeah. Also, another question I didn't get a chance to put in there, and then I didn't send it over. But also, what coach? What coach out of all those coaches that coach for the Kansas City Chiefs, out of Dick Vermeil and Marty Schottenheimer, Hank Stram, who was their Hall of Fame player that's in the Hall of Fame right now?
For each one?
Yeah, for each one.
How
many? Who had the most?
Yeah, Hank has like 9.
Who had the most? That's what I meant to say.
Yeah, Hank's got the most. The entire 69-70 Super Bowl team. You got Dawson, Bell, Thomas, Robinson, Curly Culp.
Damn. Too rich for my blood.
Tyre, I think, is in there. Bobby Bell, Willie Lanier. I don't know. I got a signed football from all of them here somewhere. Yeah. I think for
that was just amazing.
It was unprecedented. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Vermeil had obviously
the offensive line.
He had Tony Gonzalez. I think Brian Waters should have been in the Hall of Fame. Willie Roast in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Priest Holmes should be in the Hall of Fame. I don't understand that one.
That's a tough one.
With the running backs. Marty, Derek Thomas. I think Neil Smith deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And then I think with Andy, obviously, Patrick Travis, Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey will be there. Chris Jones will be there.
Taylor too. You need Taylor is gonna be in the Hall of Fame.
Otis?
No, Taylor won't.
No, I'm talking about the tackle.
Otis. My man.
Spags will be in the Hall of Fame.
Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah. No, Demetrio, sorry. Sadly, Otis Taylor's not in the Hall of Fame. He recently passed away, which is just a shame. He was the quintessential. He was the wide receiver that changed the game in the AFL more than anybody else, more than Bambi Lance Allworth, Harold Carmichael. He was the guy, and just because he didn't have that killer speed, they just keep overlooking him, and it's a crying shame.
Well, that was the classic Hank Stram. What I was referring to earlier is just like taking different body types and different types of players and just making the best out of them. I mean, they wore teams out with that hitch route.
Yeah, they did.
He and Frank Pitts, no matter who it was, and they were just bigger, stronger. They can get a lot of yards after the catch, which you really didn't hear much. But Don Maynard was in that crew too from the Jets. In terms of AFL receivers. But that's a tough one with him not being in there because
there's so many wide receivers that have gone ahead of him. It's a joke.
And I think a lot of times it becomes a quantitative thing, Nick. The quality of it was just stellar. It's the big plays during the playoff runs, big one against the Jets in the Super Bowl against the Vikings. But the numbers just aren't as great. They didn't throw the ball nearly as much. Yeah. The rules were different. You could almost tackle the receivers. So it doesn't quite match up. And you're gonna have to have somebody that can contextualize the era to a group of guys that maybe weren't around at that time and get them to vote for them.
Yeah. I mean, Otis was. He came from very, very, very humble beginnings. I had a lot of difficulty adapting to playing in the NFL. Hank took him under his wing and made him his son, and just so many great things about Otis. But you're right, Lou.
Kind of like Dick Vermeil, dude.
It was, I honestly thought when they went to the 100th anniversary and they expanded all those extra players, I thought to me, there's no question in my mind that he was going to be included in that extra group. And, Curly Culp gets in. I think Johnny Robinson deserved to be in there, as a senior vote. But some of the senior votes that have gone recently, I'm just like, they didn't have the impact. I don't think people understand that Super Bowl was the last Super Bowl before the merger began. And it was because of players like Otis Taylor who brought attention to the league. Yeah. And
that was the other thing about those guys. A lot of those guys were HBCU guys. I think I've said it before on this show. AFL really shined a light on a lot of HBCU players that for one reason or another, the NFL was not looking at. Maybe it was a pigmentation thing. Maybe it was just arrogance and they had to come from certain schools. But that really, he shined a light. There are other coaches too, but Hank Stram really went out of his way to recruit those areas. And who was the scout that was largely
Tillis?
Oh man, I can't think of his name.
It was something. Lou.
He's always on the sideline in those NFL film shots. I'll look it up. But he's largely responsible for recruiting the HBCUs.
Can we put some love to the AFL though, man? The AFL, man, for them looking at them young studs back in the day, man. We gotta get love to the AFL, man.
You know what I loved about the AFL more than anything, and this is just based on the time I spent with Lenny and Bobby Bell and Hank and a few other the players back in that era, was that they knew they were the upstart league and they wore that with a badge of honor. And what was so unique about these guys is we all saw the wars between the Chiefs and the Raiders in the 60s, some of the greatest games of all time. And these guys understood what their role was on the field, but off the field, they couldn't have been closer. They respected each other. They hung out with each other. Ben Davidson, who speared Lenny Dawson in the back, in that game in 1968, I think it was. those two guys were friends, throughout their entire lives together. And they all had a purpose and they had a point and they knew what they had to do to compete with the NFL. But, man, they stuck together. But on the field, man, they hated each other. Those rivalries were real. They could not stand going up against each other. They wanted to pummelize every chance they got. And the hitting back then in those days, man, those old AFL films, I could watch them all day long.
That's love for the game. That's love for the game.
Cast on the forearm, and you just stick it out, and you would just get some guy, and he'd run into that with his neck. They would hit him with that arm. They would trip.
I feel the passion, Nick. I feel the passion.
You could sack the quarterback.
One of the cooler things now, though, is that the entire AFC West were former AFL franchises.
That's right.
That and those rivalries are the best, and they've been around the longest. But it was just an amazing thing. And I think if you watch like some of these old NFL films, and when you talk about the togetherness of it, Nick, is when the Jets won that game.
Yep.
And they beat the Colts. They all talked about how we won.
Yeah.
No matter what team you were on,
didn't matter.
The AFL won the Super Bowl, Super Bowl III, and was like, okay, that's right. We can play with these.
Yeah, I mean the two most dominating teams in that era, the Baltimore Colts and the Minnesota Vikings, got shellackled by the Jets, and then the Chiefs, put that statement on there, and everybody thought, okay, I'm glad we did this merger. It's good for the league. It's going to raise the competition level. But you're right, Lou.
Hey, those face masks told it all. Then them face masks back in the day, they told everything, man. No mouthpiece, no grill.
The blood and the broken bones they played with.
That's my type of football there. That's my type of football there.
When did the Chiefs get away from the backwards arrowhead Casey's symbol?
I think the only place that exists was on those jackets.
Oh, okay.
Because every other shot you see, it goes the other direction on the helmets, on whatever it was, any sort of. Now back then, I don't think there was a lot of merch you could buy from the teams, right? But on those jackets is the only place, and it's red and gold. You can see it there on Hank Stram's jacket, and I think that's the only place you see it going the other direction.
Yeah.
I love that old school football, boy. I didn't bring that back. Shit,
man, paint the end zones yellow again, will you? I think that's something that Arrowhead needs to do.
Yeah,
I think they did it before the one playoff game, but
they do it every once in a while.
Yeah. But I also want to ask you, how old was y'all, Lou and Nick, when the Chiefs won their first Super Bowl? And do you remember where you was?
I do.
Did not see the game. Wasn't a fan yet. I think I was. That was like January of 70.
January 11th, 1970.
So I was
How
7.
old were you?
I was 7. No, 6. I was going on 7.
I was 8. I was 7. I was 7 3/4. I remember watching it on my TV. I remember being pissed at my parents for not taking me because they went. I was furious with them, and to this day, God rest my father's soul, but I told him, about a couple of months before he passed away, I said, you know what? I said, I can forgive you for everything, but I cannot forgive you for not taking me to Super Bowl IV to sit at the 50-yard line in Tulane Stadium in New Orleans.
Oh man.
And I remember it, and I actually have a copy of the entire CBS broadcast in color. I have a copy of that on a reel-to-reel. I've got a ton of Super Bowl memorabilia from Super Bowl IV. But yeah, I remember we had a color TV at the time, one of those old console TVs. I literally sat Indian style for 2.5 hours, 2 feet away from the screen, and just watched that game. I remember everything about that game.
What did you get to go to the parade or no?
I did get to go. 2 things happened. I got to go to the parade, but my dad felt they came home like right away. They came home very early the next morning, and my dad picked me up and he took me down to Municipal Airport, which is downtown Kansas City, and put me on his shoulders. And the Chiefs came in, I think about 2:30, 3 o'clock from their plane ride from Louisiana. And so I got to sit on my dad's shoulders as all the players were coming in. Lamar Hunt, Lenny Dawson, they're all high-fiving me. I'm thinking I'm king of the hill. So I did forgive my dad a little bit. He brought me a sweet pennant from Super Bowl IV, which I still have hanging here in my man cave.
Mom and dad want to go to New Orleans, have a good time.
Yeah, the parade I did not go to. It was just too many people.
Yeah,
that's what's up though. For you to remember that, that's what's up, man.
I heard people was hanging out the windows and everything down.
They were hanging out the windows, ticker tape. It was the greatest parade I think in Kansas City history. I know the Chiefs when they won Super Bowl 54, when the Royals won the 2015 series. As far as volume of people was greater, but the experience of all the images that I saw and in talking to, the players throughout the years, to them. That was one of the defining moments of their career, to see this city celebrate its first championship, professional championship, in the manner in which they took out the Vikings and how close all these guys were in the community and worked in. Remember, all these players, they had full-time jobs because the top salary in the AFL was like $19,000 to $23,000 per year. That's it.
When you go back to that, man,
a lot of bills.
Bring some good football back. Go back and bring them salaries
they all
down.
had jobs that they were doing during the season.
Go back to some old good football.
You'll have guys that run like 5 and 6 second 40s playing.
Yeah, at least. Those were some good times there.
That's not happening.
So with that said, guys, that was our show for today. We brought, the idea of thinking about it, bringing the show, the title of the show is bringing the old Chiefs fans to the middle of the pack of Chiefs fans.
Shout out to Dick Vermeil, man. Dick Vermeil,
Chiefs fans, ring. So,
hey, we can't forget Gunther Cunningham and Herm Edwards. I thought for what they had to work with, I think they did some great stuff, and I was really close to both of them. So.
Okay, from a personal level, I get it.
Spin things to more like timely at this point, and this is a question that maybe we can leave everybody with, and you can mull it over, and we'll hit on it on Wednesday. Is that the Jets also had 2 first-round picks 4 years ago, right? They had Sauce and they had Garrett Wilson. Both guys, they've got their 5th-year options have been extended, whatever. So they got that. But recently, I think it was Jeremy Fowler, they have open negotiations with signing them to extensions. The Chiefs also have 2 guys from that draft, first-round picks, 5th-year options extended. When do those negotiations start? How much are Cuffs and George worth? Will they pay them? So all that good stuff. But I thought that was interesting that another team,
the money.
And those guys were both top 10 picks, and they were respective rookies of the year on either side of the ball. Yeah. So we'll see.
We'll find out.
This could play a part in the Chiefs negotiations with those 2 guys.
Yep. No, I agree. It's a good question. Good topic.
We'll leave you guys with that. We'll see you guys Wednesday with Chiefs Who and more good Chiefs materials and topics coming your way on Wednesday. So with that said, thank you guys for joining in. Don't forget to hit scan that QR code right down there for Underdog and play 5 and get 50 and use the code Chiefs Blitz. See you guys Wednesday.
Peace.